Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, or welcome for the first time to the Purple Kurt and Electric Man podcast. I'm flying solo today, but with me I have very special guest, Vicky Leigh.
The icon Vicky Leigh. That's what you call me. Don't call me by my dead name, cause that's so fucking lame. The icon Vicky Leigh.
Icon on the other side here, folks. That is from Vicky's recent EP available on BandCamp. It is called Aries Rising, and the name of the song is called Deadname. Vicky, welcome to the Purple Kurt podcast. How are you today, my dear?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, so for those who may or may not know, Vicky and I have been in each other's orbit before, but on Mr. Chris Johnson's Purple Nights podcast. And we want to both, of course, give a special shout out to our beloved friend Chris, our
Hi,
purple
Chris.
brother from another mother, who's had us on together when we did a George Michael deep dive discussion, which at some point I think we need to get back to. But
I want to do
today,
part two.
yes, but today it's all about you, my dear. So Vicky and I are part of what I like to call the Crayon Box Cartel. To the rest of the universe, it's known as the LGBTQIA and whatever alphabet they add on, letter of the alphabet they add on. But we're part of that greater rainbow connection universe. I also want to point out behind me, this is the artwork, original artwork, photography modified by my guest today, Vicky's very talented creator, original story writer, reviewer, was a staff writer for Casey Rain, his Violet Reality podcast on YouTube. And as you can hear and see, is also creative artistically and musically. So again, I want to say thank you for coming on. And it's all about you today, my dear.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Oh,
So, we were discussing earlier before coming on because I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out and a background about your unique journey and your upbringing. That you were born in Essex, UK, correct?
yeah.
And for those out there playing at home, that is the home to Dave Gahn and I believe several other members of Depeche Mode. And then you moved to Suffolk. Can you give us the story how it goes from there?
I was mum and dad owned a pet and plant shop that after I was born went bust. So then we moved from a village called Clare to where we live now in Haverhill. It's where I've been for basically my entire life, darting around from house to house to flat.
As one does, you know.
Yeah.
Now, I never ask a person their age, but I'm saying late 20s. Is that accurate? Do you mind if I ask?
I
Early
always
20s?
said,
I don't know. I'd never ask a person's age. Listen, believe me, I'm 53 and you can see the turkey neck and the crow's feet right here, so
24 in human years, just 24 in human years.
but eternal and forever young in Aryan years. How about that?
Yeah, go for
Is that fair?
it.
24 is not old. I, I wish I were 24 again, knowing what I
Trust,
know now.
trust me, when you've been through the ringer like I have, I do not feel 24. I feel like three times my age.
No, and I get that. And I get that. And I'd like to talk a little more about whatever you're comfortable talking about because folks, we really connected often on the air when we were on Chris's podcast because of our connection to me being an OG, I say post Stonewall OG gay man, and Vicky, you define yourself. Yeah, take a minute, take a beverage. I believe I've got the coffee right here to keep going here. Sponsored by Fiend from Conshohocken's finest coffee company. But probably should ask them for for an endorsement. I try to hit them
Yeah.
once a week. But in this unique world of sexual identity and diversity, we have so many more labels that we can define ourselves or not define ourselves as. Through your unique journey, you've had this unique sense of self discovery that hasn't happened necessarily overnight. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Um, it all started when I was 13, within the space of 6 months,
Wow.
with the girl that I was dating at the time. I turned around to her as a young boy and I said, "Hey, what would you do if I got a sex change?" But I didn't know what trans was until I was 18. And
Yeah.
then I came out as trans at 18. And then in 2022, I do believe, yeah, 2022, I came out as non-binary, but kind of as time's gone on, as much as labels can be beneficial and help people, at the end of the day, I'm just me. I like what I like. I love what I love. I have favorites, but I'm just trying to exist in this world, bro.
Yeah, I get it. And fortunately, you have found a number of wonderful creative outlets because you're a very thoughtful person. And you and I have talked a number of times, and I'm just blown away. I find you, and I didn't mean to insult you earlier asking if you're in your late 20s because you always strike me as somebody who's 24 going on 40 intellectually. Like you've been through because you've self-described as being through so much and that has aged you at least 3 times according to you, that you've had a couple more rings around the oak tree than most people have mentally rather than physiologically.
Yeah.
And your our discussions are just give me food for thought because I necessarily didn't go through the same struggle as you, but certainly in the era that I grew up in the 80s of even coming out would have been, verboten. That's something you just didn't necessarily do unless you wanted to get your ass kicked. And I
Yeah.
went to high school, to give context, I went to high school in Newtown, Connecticut, and lived in Sandy Hook, where that unfortunate mass shooting happened in 2012. Now, this gentleman the shooter in question, wasn't even born yet. I went to high school there from 1984 to 1988, and I can tell you're the special guest today, but just trying to make the connection that, a person who does not fit an easy set of labels, sexual identity or otherwise, no matter what decade you're going through it, it's never an easy journey.
When I was 13, I also discovered that I'm not straight as well as not a boy. And I remember, I think it was the summer that I was going through this self-discovery, especially with the sexuality. But obviously, when I was in high school, we'd progressed from when you were at high school, but not to the point that we have now. And I
Right.
remember being terrified that if I were to go to school after summer and people would find out that I'm not straight, would I get kicked to the curb? It never
Mm-hmm.
happened. And people were nice about it, but because back then, a literal decade ago, there was still that fear, and
Yeah.
people come out as easily.
And just because you and I grew up in different decades going through high school or whatever you call it, over the sixth form or whatever you call it,
I think we call it high school. Sixth form comes after.
as that sixth form comes after you, because I don't know the lingo like that.
Ah,
But so just because you and I came from different decades, it doesn't mean bullying doesn't exist. Because if you're just different from everybody else, you're still going to get a rationing of shit from people.
yeah. I mean, this is slight tangent, but I
This is what we're all
before
about. Tangents are what we're all about, dear.
before this, I was just watching a l- girl who streams games on Twitch, and she's a lesbian, and she kind of records all of the stuff that goes over voice chat and then puts it on TikTok, and it is literally just a barrage of slurs and racist words coming from men, and it's like you think we're in the year 2024 and we've moved on and everyone's so nice and accepting, but then you see those videos and it's like how is
Yeah.
this still a thing?
Hmm. It. Let me tell you. I think I grew up in a simple. So my 2 cents on that are social media has made things more exponentially difficult because everybody analyzes every burp, fart, every wrinkle, every crease, every there's this micro analysis that and when you're an insecure teenager, that you add you add social media to that and it's a fucking ticking time bomb. And the fact that cyberbullying has replaced regular conventional bullying in many respects, many former students of mine. In fact, I have a couple of students who came out to me that I had when I was an elementary music primary, as you say, primary school teacher teaching music. That found out many years later on Facebook, of course, because where do they discover people my age? That's on social media. Um, that came out to me actually during the pandemic. I got a flood of students that they just were feeling particularly sentimental about how times were simpler before the pandemic, and I had a couple who came out as gay or bisexual, and of course their names are going to be protected. I certainly won't reveal those names, but recently I had a conversation on American Mother's Day with
Hmm.
a former student, and he and I, they do identify as he, but mentioned that was bisexual, and always knew, Mr. Hoffman, that you were gay as hell, but because who could be, and I quote, who could be that passionate about music and the arts? And I had to tell them that just because I'm gay doesn't mean that I know there's a lot of straight people who are just as passionate about music and the arts as I am. But he's they are still learning, and as are we all are. Because I told you off the air before I hit record here that I'm still learning about the different facets within the gay, lesbian, bisexual, intersex, and asexual community. I'm still learning about binary versus non-binary because that's not a universe that I necessarily grew up in,
Can I
80s,
just
90s, and 2000s.
can I just say something to get
Please.
set the record? I may be trans, I may be queer, I may be non-binary, but I do not know or understand as much as I probably should. I don't even get the whole trans thing. Like, how does somebody wake up one day and go, "I'm in the wrong body. I don't know. I don't understand. I just am it." And I am also trying my best to learn, understand, and help others like you
Yeah.
or worse closed-minded people than you to understand and
Yeah.
accept and love us. Because as much as the media or politics wants to make us out to be bad people, we're not. We're just vibing. We're just trying to get money to change our body to be what we want it to be.
Yeah. And the struggle over there, I mean, we could probably spend an hour talking about how the GOP over here, the Republican Party, that has been taken over by a squamous carcinomic tumor. Um, that's just trying to say that they've been subverted by one particular political figure. Um, and the whole idea of book banning and taking off rainbow flags out of schools, and that the fact that, you know, drag queens are bad and trans peoples are trying to take over the bathrooms and all this ultra conservative hype. The way that gay culture is being subverted yet again in my country. I saw Roe v. Wade here as a wake up call, and my immediate reaction to it when it happened, when they took away the my body my choice federally in this country, I said they're coming for me next. They're
Ugh.
coming for my rights to be married to whomever I want to be married to next. It doesn't make me a pedophile. It doesn't make me Chester the molester. It doesn't make me a monster like they're trying to make us out to be. And
Yeah.
you know, it's unfortunately, Vicky, ahistoricism is a guiding principle. History repeats itself every decade, every half millennium, every millennium. Stupid shit repeats itself over and over again. And unfortunately, you and I are two human beings in this world trying to fight the good fight. So,
And I'm trying to fight it by not just having conversations like this, so
mhm,
putting it into the music and the
yeah.
stories.
Hmm. And the fact that, so I'm going to bring up a show that I've really embraced and appreciated over the last couple of seasons, and that's Heartstopper, which just so happens to be based in England. And the two gentlemen on that show, the two little stars, Joe Locke and Kit Connor, you know, it is, I really just, I get in the verge of tears every time I watch the first two seasons because it just touches on so many different subjects. And you actually have a trans actor on the show.
Are we talking about Yasmin Finney?
Yes.
Yasmin Finney was in Doctor Who, just to put that out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And wait a minute. And the gentleman that's playing Doctor Who, we could talk about that for a minute. I can never say his name. He was on Sex Ed. Oh, you got
Shooty.
it.
Of course I've got it.
Oh my God. What's his name? Please tell me what's his name.
Shooty.
He is just. I remember him on Sex Education with Asa Butterfield and
Yeah.
oh help me, Lord help me, she was on the X Files. Just a brilliant
Gillian
act.
Anderson.
Yes, Gillian. You talk about brilliant actress.
Uh-huh.
And I saw this young guy playing, African Nigerian roots, I believe, on the show. I'm like, this guy's going to be a superstar. This guy's going to be a superstar. And lo and behold, got the mantle handed over to the Doctor Who franchise. I only have just watched the first episode. I mean, we could probably have another hour. In fact, we should probably table just discussing that show and the queer universe for that part two coming up, right? Because he is fabulous.
Yeah.
And
Shooty, like, as much as I've always said that Peter Capaldi in the 12th Doctor is like my hero, and a lot of the stuff that was written for his Doctor is what I try to base my life on, just trying to continue those messages.
yeah,
But Shooty has come along and he's like a tour de force, and I'm
yeah,
obsessed with him to the point that he is my phone background. I love this man.
nothing wrong with that. And let me tell you something. 3 words: $1 million, well, £1 million smile. That smile,
Okay?
light. I mean, that you talk about a beacon in the universe. Unbelievable. Boy, I would love to get. Does he identify as him or them? 'Cause
Everyone always says this. As far as I know, Shooty is a he and is queer.
okay. Well, but out of respect, because I don't know
Oh yeah,
them
yeah.
personally, that I asked that question because I found that I myself have to be careful out of respect how people want to be addressed. You know.
It just baffles. I guess it's probably because I don't know him, but I indulge myself in so much content about him. I feel like I know him, but it's also kind of shocking that people ask that to me because I don't really get they them non-binary vibes off of him as a person.
Yeah.
But I guess you doing that is just a demonstration that even me, a trans non-binary person, is still kind of not used to the whole "hey, what's your pronouns" thing, because even when I get asked it, it kind of throws me for a loop.
Well, and because you're still going through this journey of self-discovery, and that the older you get, and we had this discussion off the air, but I said, Vicky, at age 53, next week I'll be 54, that I feel like my most authentic self than I've ever felt in my life, it just boils down to age and experience. But you have to get out there and you have to put yourself out there in the universe. And again, my number one favorite game, and I've said this on numerous episodes, and it's worth repeating: life is an elaborate game of connect the dots, and figuring out how those dots fit is half the beautiful journey and discovery in life. And as you get older, you'll get more comfortable in your own skin. You won't have any problem, whatever pronoun you choose to pick, to proudly and display it. And if it changes, who cares? Why is it such a threat to people that and I hate the far right over here are just like, oh, you're going to change go to the bed, you're doing that just so you can get into the women's bathroom and the men's bathroom. It has nothing to do with that at fucking all. Has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, can I make it again explicitly clear as a trans person, when I go to a public bathroom, I just want to do my business, wash my hands, and leave. I'm not in there to be pervy or pry on anyone. I have more. I hate using public bathrooms even before I realized I was a
Who
trans
likes
person.
using them to begin with? I mean, come on.
I get so much public peeing anxiety, and I just hate public bathrooms. When I go there, I'm not trying to do anything nefarious. I'm trying to do my business and leave before I have some kind of panic attack.
You know, mm, I just need to absorb that for a second.
I just think
Um,
people are stupid.
well, ignorant, uh, ignorant, stupid, whatever way you want to describe it, is just I think fear and fear mongering just because somebody does something slightly different than you or whatever. It's like, and that's why I like the ideas of these gender neutral bathrooms, because just to give somebody a break. And really, I will say, to our credit in the United States, and we live in a fairly progressive neighborhood in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, Montgomery County. Basically, my county and Philadelphia County is what got Biden elected in the last election. That was the Hail Mary pass in the game of American football, which shouldn't be called football, it should be called handball, but never mind. you know, but you know, and not without trying to get too political, but honestly, I mean, we're getting a second wave of political anxiety yet again in this country, and I'm sure whatever way the scales tip in this country, for the next election cycle, it's been on all our minds. And I'm sure not just here in the United States, I'm sure overseas too, the discussion. And I know your country's going through quite a political. Oh, yeah, let open up that can of worms.
I always say that I'm not a political person, but then, like, just out of nowhere, I will break silence and just come out with something about politics. And yeah, it's not so great over here either.
Yeah. Well, what's that saying? Politicians are like babies, they need to be changed often.
I
You
also
know,
think that the only thing politicians are good for is a good meme, because there are so many good memes about British politicians.
over here too. Over here too, believe me. And it's kind of sad that we live in such a, with social media, we're living in this such a this reductive nature. Everything's all these memes are just a tool for being reductive, in the negative end. I know there's a humorous sense to memes, and there's a positive, or at least humorous. Not, we all have to make fun of ourselves, because if you don't, you got to have a sense of humor, because if you
Hmm.
don't, you'll go batshit crazy. But I find a lot of those political memes are just so fucking reductive, and you're trying to paint people in a portrait that they're not necessarily in. But people always like to graft on a narrative that isn't there often with these memes. It's just, yeah. It, society just is messed up,
Yeah,
to put a finer
yeah.
point on it. It's just, it's cyberbullying outside of the classroom, and the sandbox is just moved from one platform to the other, is how I see it. And you and I could spend all day talking about that, but maybe to change the conversation a little bit, and gravitated more towards your unique vision. The song that I put, yeah, hey, strike a pose, honey, strike a pose. You know, um, you know, speaking of somebody who culturally appropriated gay culture, Madonna. But anyway, don't get me started on that. I love Madge. Don't get me wrong. I grew up with Madonna, but it's a fine line between paying homage and cultural appropriation, and sometimes certain artists straddle that line more one way than the other because it's hip.
I'm
So
not the biggest fan of Madonna. I'll save that for another
I mean,
time.
I grew up with her. I think she had some genius like moments, and she embraced gay culture. I don't think it was just a fad for her, but it's a lot of people who grew up in that ballroom culture will tell you that Vogue was just nothing more than cultural appropriation. And that's a great song. Don't get me wrong, I love the song, but when you get older and you look back on things, everything's hindsight's 2020, as they say. But um, not dissing Madonna at all. And if I am, so what? It's our discussion, my podcast. We do whatever the hell we want to do. But or well, it's not just mine anymore. Shout out to Jay Silva. But I did tell him we were going to do this podcast because I think it's important that people who come to this podcast, and I frequently, no matter what topic I'm discussing, whether I put a short thing on reviewing music that I'm passionate about, Um, like Judas Priest. Okay, Rob Halford, who is a gay icon, British gay icon.
What
Um,
can I say?
all the great ones: Freddie Mercury, Rob Halford, George Michael, all the good, all the top performers. Let's just call it out there. But not all. Obviously, Michael Jackson. Well, that could be a discussion for another day. I love his music,
Another
but
day, another day.
oh, you know that we got to put that to the later file. But um, you know, you and I embrace music as one of our main outlets,
Oh yeah,
and obviously our mutual love of Prince, figured
oh yeah.
largely into your musical value system. So can you tell me a little bit, because you and I've had this discussion, and I've mentioned many times that Prince to me was genderqueer before there was even the term genderqueer. Certainly, he took a page out of David Bowie's book and many other artists, Little Richard in particular, you know, informed uh, a guy like Prince. The flamboyance, whether Prince was actually gay or not, or bisexual, you know. And I always have the theory that he was probably bisexual and he had to keep it on the DL. But that's my opinion. Um,
Hey,
I mean, anesthesia tells you all you need to know for me. Have you ever been so lonely that you felt like you were the only one in this world? Have you ever wanted to play with someone so much you'd take anyone, boy or girl? Now, you be the judge of that shit. I
it's funny
mean,
you say that because I always shoot down any accusations of Prince being gay from normies, from people who haven't dived as deep as we have.
right.
But Anastasia is also like my favorite song in the entire world,
Hello. That's why we get along, dear.
and there are a good couple of songs on Love Sexy that I have listened to when I have been at my lowest point, and it is
Yep.
the messages through those songs that have got me to this point today. And this was when I was like 21, and I discovered Prince when I was 13.
Love Sexy changed my life. And at that time, I was identifying as bisexual.
Hmm.
This is 1988 we're talking about, and I was coming to terms with my own sexuality, and for the large part of me is gay, but I find some women attractive as well, physically, as well as whatever. And I in fact I'll have a friend that I'm going to with that was my first. And Kirsten does not. She, in fact, when she introduces us to people we've never met, she says, "Oh yeah, I deflowered him." So shout out to Kirsten Porter. Oh yeah, black woman too. My first was a black woman. So you know, I've always, they've my friends of color have always joked to me that you're like kind of like the undercover brother. You never know by looking at me or speaking to me, but I got a little bit of brother in me. Has always
No,
been the tagline. Yeah, 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 yeah. But that's a topic for another day, or maybe not. But like you and I, we shared this bond of love, sexy. That literally, anesthesia was a life changing song for me personally, because it's like, oh, I felt like somebody got me.
uh-huh, okay, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
felt like somebody saying what I felt all along.
I can't even put into words why I love that song. I cannot describe why I love it, why it's my favorite song of all time, but whenever I just need something to make me feel better, the lights are off, the headphones are in, Anastasia is playing, I'm in tears and I'm basically praying. Not that I'm a religious person.
I get it, and I'm very moved by that, by the way, and I get it. And let's qualify. Love Sexy is not the kind of shit you put on at a dinner party as background. Love Sexy is a headphones album. Or
Although
now in the era that we live in, an earbud. It is an earbuds headphones album.
I some when I'm like in a really happy, upbeat, funky mood and I want some good bass in my life, I listen to the title track because the bass in that song
Oh,
is
ridiculous.
incredible.
There's actually, and I'll tell you, just on Alphabet Street alone, to piggyback on that, I saw a short, the YouTube Shorts clip with Michael Bland, and he
Uh-huh.
talked about how when we had to break down playing these songs live, I broke down Alphabet Street. Alphabet Street's got like three different bass parts on it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Love Sexy had at least three different bass parts on it playing as well. Because Prince was all about being uncopyable.
Mm.
And he talked about how he deliberately added all this extra shit on tracks so that when if people even attempted to cover his songs, they couldn't possibly do it justice because he added so many extra spices. And if they did cover it, you'd need 30 people to play what he did live and pull
I
it off.
remember I remember finding out that the I think it's the snare for the question of you isn't actually a snare, it's a baseball. And I think about that weekly.
What?
Yeah, go listen
Wow.
to the question of you. The I can't remember if it's the snare or the kick, but it's not a drum, it's a baseball.
It's a sample of a
Basketball.
baseball hitting the ground.
Basketball. Yeah, it's
Oh,
a bouncing
basketball.
basketball.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Oh, not surprised that he would pull something like that because he was all about being unique and coming up with unique sounds. What was one of his main passions besides music? Basketball,
Yeah.
right? So there, the question of you sampled basketball sounds. He always wanted to be a basketball star, but he was always told that he was too short for it.
And I'm sure he would have absolutely slaughtered
Killed,
everybody in that.
killed him. You know, I mean, and the stories about him with Charlie Murphy and all that shit, Eddie Murphy. I remember hearing, I think it was an Australian morning TV show. He's like, it's not because I was so good, it's because they were so bad. I always love that. And he said all the stories you heard were true, but it wasn't because I was that good at basketball. It's just they were so bad at it. Like, that's not humble bragging by any stretch, but that's why we love Prince because his sense of humor and his ego were, I, and you love him for it because it's like, yeah, the guy was good at so many different things, as
I
compartmentalized as he was.
I love all the shade that he would throw, and there are
Oh,
so many just pictures of his face when he is throwing shade that I often use as a
yep,
meme reaction to somebody. Like
yep.
when he says that my microphone is on, the face he pulls.
My microphone is on. Yeah, that shit. That's just
That
and actually I just watched, and that's from Much TV from Canada, and I think he puts a thing on. The only thing that he was making fun of the Canadian accent or something like that, and he said something to the effect was, "Well, that was the only part of the show that was lip synced, me doing the Canadian accent," and I laughed and I went, "Chet, you talk about somebody who could come up with one-liners because he always had to have the last word."
yeah, yeah,
That's why, because when I grew up as a kid, I always wanted to have the last word too, and I still try to, but
yeah.
sometimes without even trying. So you'll have to excuse me if I do that to you ever. But I always liked him for that because he was a smart ass and had to have the last word. And I'm like, well, I'm fluent in sarcasm too, and I dig it, man. Just, I mean, you talk about when we go back to talking about memes, and he is a reigning fucking champion of people coming up with memes for some of the stuff, like the when he has those faces when he does, and you could just put anything you want in the meme. It's and then when people answer that in the Prince community with yet another meme, and there'll be this chain of like him going, that shit. Prince has his own meme culture onto it. That's a whole. We could spend. That's another topic we could cover. Prince and meme culture. I mean, that's another. Vicky, this discussion ain't over. By any
No,
stretch,
no,
but
it ain't over. Like Prince literally
it ain't
says, it ain't.
over. It ain't over. Yeah, I should have had that as a sound. It ain't over.
Next
Which then
time.
the estate would take it down. But anyway,
Oh, that's true.
yeah, they'll
I was
take
gonna
it down.
say, oh yeah. So the song that I've been working on that I've been elusively talking to you and Chris about,
Yeah.
um, because I think it's so funky. You've not heard it yet, and you could think otherwise. But after I finished laying down the basic tracking for it, and I was so pumped and so hyped for it, I listened to songs like La 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 Hee Hee Hee
Mm.
and Love Sexy, but also Ain't Gonna Miss You When You're Gone and The Bourgeoisie and what you just said about him having the last word.
Yeah.
Ain't Gonna Miss You and The Bourgeoisie feels like Prince musically having the last word.
Let me tell you. Um, so I had a guest on recently, and I just want to piggyback, and this is actually going into the Judas Priest, Bob Halligan Jr. universe. He wrote a song for them on their new album, Invincible Shield. Okay, this connects in a weird way, but the
I
connect the
trust
dot.
you. I'll let you land.
So, um, appreciate it. Stick the landing, Kirk. Come on, man. No pressure, man. Stick the landing. All right. So, but at any rate, um, Bob had written a song. The first song that Judas Priest covered of his, he didn't write for them specifically. Actually, John Wade of Missing You fame was to have written it, to have covered it. And it's a song called Take These Chains. So if you look up the Judas Priest song, Take These Chains, originally was offered to John Wade. And he said, Bob, I love the song, but can you make the lyrics more bland? And to his American ears, that sounded like, Bob, I need you to water down your song and make it, weaker, more bubblegum. And Bob said no. He told his publisher, who was May Pang, who is famous for being John Lennon's paramour. She was a
Okay.
producer. Oh yeah, the Lost. Look up the Lost Weekend, May Pang. There's a documentary about that whole period. 18 months that he was not with Yoko Ono in a relationship. They separated, and that was Bob's publishing agent. So anyway, Bob gets this song to then Judas Priest wants to record. And he said, "Sure, yeah, that's great. I don't know anything about them." And Bob's as far removed from heavy metal as you possibly could be, but he got typecast because of his contributions to that. He also wrote for the hair band Kix a song called "Don't Close Your Eyes," which went to number 11 in the U.S. charts and was a huge hit, biggest hit he ever wrote. But he ended up writing for Michael Bolton, Cher, Kiss. I mean, his palette is all over the place. So fast forward to the script and the album that Priest put out. The song "You Got Another Thing Coming" comes off this album as well. It's called "Screaming for Vengeance." Okay, so I'm gonna get to that. Keep that word in your mind, vengeance. He wrote a song for the Defenders of the Faith album, the follow-up album to "Screaming for Vengeance," called "Some Heads Are Gonna Roll." Some heads are gonna roll. It's a very mid-tempo-y song, and it kind of is in the same vein as the song that they wrote called "You Got Another Thing Coming." It has that middle of the road, mid-tempo rock, straight ahead rock kind of thing, because the rest of the album is not. It's more like balls to the wall, and they needed something for the radio. So his wife Linda, whom I'll get to meet next Wednesday, meet both of them in
Nice.
person. Yeah, I cannot. I can't fucking. That's going to be an episode unto itself. And Bob's wife said, "Hey, why don't you write them another song at least? They'll listen to it." And he did, and they picked it up yet again. Said, "We love the song. We're going to cover it." Fast forward to 2018 when he went to see them in his hometown of Syracuse, New York, where I'll be next week. And Rob Halford collared him and said, "Hey, Bob, are you still writing?" He said, "Yeah, right. I still write all the time." And Bob taught at Syracuse University in New York. He taught a Beatles course, he taught a songwriting course, and a film scoring course for 10 years at the University of Syracuse University. And he said, "Yeah, of course. I've never stopped writing. Could you write us another song?" He did. And he based it off of The Lodger, which is a silent film that was Alfred Hitchcock. And I did not know Alfred Hitchcock did silent movies before he did spoken
Ooh.
movies. I didn't know this. I'm not quite the cinephile like that. And it was the third film that Alfred Hitchcock had done. It was called The Lodger. And the chorus in Bob's song is "Vengeance is mine," said the lodger. It's a very rock opera song. But how funny it's come full circle. And I point out that, they wrote a song earlier in their career called The Ripper, about Jack the Ripper. And then he writes this song, and he did not know that. And this song is kind of a kissing cousin to that. But the song title says "Vengeance is mine." So he came full circle in their universe. And that was going with whatever we were talking about. That connect the dots have such a disparate thing. And that when you least expect it, a connect the dot moment that we have with Prince and what we were talking about earlier, connects to that in some strange way. That you connected something with Prince that maybe the rest of us didn't,
Mhm.
but it had a unique meaning to you
Mhm.
or to me or what have you. So this greater that was a little bit of a tangent, but this is what we're all about. We can. I told you I was going to waffle at some point,
I
but
love a good tangent, and if you gave me the floor, I'd probably do the same.
and here's the thing. Rob Halford, gay icon, and not one that was out and proud necessarily. I mean, he didn't come out too many decades later, in an inadvertently in an interview, just casually mentioned that I've been a gay man all my life, and just until recently. This was in 1998, and granted, he was a recording artist since 1974,
Say 1998.
huh?
Isn't 98 the same year that George Michael came out?
Or was forced to come out
Was forced to come out.
when he was too busy cottaging in the states. Yes, darling. Yes, I do believe. I believe that might have been the year before. It was like in between 97, 98, right? That he was caught in those public bathrooms in LA and a cop busted him. Yeah, around that time. Probably you're probably right. It probably is 98. I don't have the facts in front of me just right now, but Um but no, you're probably right. It's around that time period. Let's put it in that general broad time period. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. But oh, we love our George, don't we? He's another one. Lucky enough to have seen him live at least once, and I'll forever remember that show. Oh, hold on. I still have the program right here.
You've seen George and Prince. Like, come on. What a
There's our
beautiful
boy.
man.
Oh, he's just and this is from the 25 live.
I need to
What?
rewatch the Blu-ray for that.
You know what? I do too. There, I revealed my background there. My basement looks like Hannibal Lecter's, Buffalo Bill's characters. It rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. It does it whenever it's told.
You
Moment
broke
there.
the illusion. He's
Oh, I did. Broke the fourth wall. Whoa!
not
Anyway, so
actually in a forest. Who knew?
I did not live in a forest. You know what though? There's certain times a year where the mosquitoes would get around here, and I couldn't do that. I love camping. I do love the outdoors, and I love camping, but couldn't do that too long. I love this background, by the way. Jesus, I might use it more than often. I don't have to give
You're
credit to you, of course. It's a fabulous
you're
back. Do you notice though? The rainbow flag colors are just in there, and I don't know that was that intentional.
well. Can I rant a bit about it?
Please.
So for the longest time as a musician, I was doing the whole Marilyn Manson, Gary Newman, I hate the world, I hate myself, I wish I was dead kind of thing. And I
Oof.
thought, as a challenge, I want to make some music that is actually nice and upbeat and bright and colourful. So I went for this whole thing. I mean, it's colourful, it's bright, and there's kind of a special meaning behind the stars because I was having a chat with my friend Phoebe, who's non-binary, and we were talking about astrology, I think, and they
Okay.
sent me a picture of like the constellation of Aries, and I'm in Aries. And then when I mirrored, like the constellation was going across the page rather than down the page. But when I flipped it and mirrored it, the constellation suddenly became a V. And I was like, that's the first letter of my name mirrored in my.
Jesus. Clever, clever, clever.
I didn't know this. I didn't plan this. It just happened.
Happy
And
accidents are half the fun, and the fact that you can put that on later and after the fact that it was in the stars, if you will, to happen that way.
and on the EP there is a song called Faith that is kind of inspired by Prince, kind of inspired by The Cure. And in the song it says look to the stars for validation, which is me basically
Uh-huh.
saying validated my choice of name through the stars, which is on the cover.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And I must say, um, I am a I'm a fan of what I've heard so far. You've sent a couple of tracks out there, and I'm always like, God damn, this is like Pet Shop Boys without Neil singing. and I'm fond of that. I'm really fond. I'm really fond of the style that you are creating on your own. And I think over time, as you continue, and I hope that you don't ever stop. We're gonna play a little more if you don't mind. Here, we're gonna throw it on here. Come on.
Vampiric astral being, my name is the icon, founder of Cyberpunk City, located in the Lotus Flower Galaxy, outside of your time and space. My pronouns are she and her when surrounded by your pitiful human race. But when I go back home, I'm above all labels. My true self identifies as they and them.
There you go. I purposely played that portion of it because that basically summates what you want the world to know about you. And I
I
stopped it right there on purpose.
as I said to you, I always think of Dead Name as like the introduction to me because, as I've said to you, there is this whole kind of universe galaxy that I'm trying to build through my creativity. And there are references to that in the song Dead Name, but as Dead Name goes on, it kind of, I describe it as it's me going for the government's blood because the government doesn't care or support trans people.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. I look at a move like that as kind of like what David Bowie did with all his personas. The Thin White Duke, Aladdin
Oh,
Sane. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean when I say Black Star and his final brilliant fucking move before his death. Black. I was literally just listening to Black. I introduced some folks at work yesterday to the Black Star because they'd never heard the song, and I believe me, I believe that is the greatest David Bowie song of all time. I'm just going to throw it out there. Black
I
Star is
will never.
10 minutes of genius.
I'm a David Bowie fan. David Bowie is the person who directed me to look into the fact that I'm not straight and
Ah,
not
yep.
um basically I had an awakening when I saw David Bowie in a dress outside Haddon Hall at 15. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's unlocked something inside of me. We'll save that. Took me till I was 18, but David Bowie is very important to me. And when I was 15, Station to Station was one of my favorite songs. I wanted to
Oh,
copy
you're
the
picking the
character.
classic period there.
And then what you were saying about Black Star being his greatest song, I was thinking how that's a 10-minute long song that I love, and also Station to Station, 10-minute long song that I love. And there is a song that I've been working on that may or may not be inspired by a song off of Black Star. It's going to take a while to get out. That I don't. I wish it wasn't that way, but hopefully when the next lot of music is out, I can come back to plug that.
And guess what, Vicky? It'll come out when it's ready.
It'll come out when I've got the money and means to record it and finish it.
Understood that. Let's talk about your creative process for just a hot minute. So,
Oh,
um, really, I know this is what you live for, right? So let's talk about it. Let's discuss how the sausage is made, as I frequently say, because to make a tasty sausage, you have all these different ingredients that are put together: herbs and
yes,
spices.
herbs.
Oregano, a pinch of oregano. So, in all seriousness, though, um, what software do you use? What DAW software do you use when creating your tracks?
I think it's called Ignite. Fun story about that. When I was 17, my
Hmm.
dad was like, "Hey, what do you want for your birthday?" And I said, "A keyboard with like those pads that you can press to pretend you're playing drums." So I
Certainly.
found one that was in our price range, and it came with a free software called Ignite. And I've been using that exact same software since I was 17, and I am now 24, and it's not failed me. It got to a point where I was like, everything I'm doing just sounds the same. So I started experimenting and throwing different instruments together. And when I was 19, when I was working on Um, Anti-Technicians. Hang on, what's the album called? Anti-Technicians Rise and Cause the Fall of the Machines is when
Yeah,
I stumbled across this specific sound that then I started using for Vampires and Ghosts, both unreleased. They'll get there eventually. And then I kind of dropped off of doing the whole music thing for a while, but recently I've started going back to it. I can't remember what song it was that I was doing, but I'd laid down the drums, I'd laid down the bass, and since I was 16, I've wanted my music to have this kind of ethereal synth sound to feel like you're in space in a galaxy. And
yeah,
I laid down the
yeah.
synth to go with the drum and bass, and I was just sat there listening to it, and I was like, "Holy hell! I feel like I'm home," because there's just something about that for me. I'm my biggest fan. The combination of all of the like instruments that I use is just my sound, and it feels like my home.
That's perfect. That's a beautiful description, and I'm really glad that you found your sanctuary in that
Oh yeah,
because we all need some form of that in our lives, and especially during the pandemic. My God, if you didn't have some sense of sanctuary, whether it's meditation, music, food. Well, a lot of us, food was more than just a sanctuary. It was more like the lion's den. But seriously, that's beautiful. And
can I just say something?
please, this is for you, all you.
There's a lot of stuff I've come to realize there's a lot of stuff in my music about like stars and galaxies that probably comes from the fact that my favorite Prince album is Lotus Flower slash MPLS sound.
Ooh,
And I just wanted to make it explicitly clear to anyone watching that everything I do is connected. Everything I do has more than one meaning, and everything is taking a long while to finish and get out. Sometimes that's
mm.
beyond my control. Sometimes I just get too depressed to function. But I really hope that anyone who hops on board the Vicky Leigh creative universe, as I call it, is patient enough. And I hope that everything that I deliver lives up to expectation, wows people, makes people think about stuff, because as much as I'm doing this as a way to like get stuff off of my chest, I also want to be a creative who makes people think and second guess their own thoughts and change how they think about stuff. So they could go into something with a preconceived idea, listen to one of my songs, read something that I've written, and then walk away thinking, huh, I I was wrong, or I didn't consider that before.
So, come for and let me put this in a person that might be far more ignorant than you or I. Come for the spectacle. Oh, let's look at the trans person and blah 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 blah, and come away from it transformed themselves, and
Yeah.
perhaps a little less ignorant and a little more informed.
I I will be the first person to admit straight away up front, I'm unemployed. I don't have a job, but
Yeah.
I the way that I see it is that if somebody who's like 60 years old and hated trans people were to sit down with me for an hour and walk away, completely changed their idea on trans people because of that conversation they've had with me, then I would go, that's my job done. But the thing is that that's not really a job. You don't get paid for that stuff. So I guess I'm trying to um transform that into a way that I can get money. Music, stories.
Well, we used to call that starving artist. And believe me when I tell you, being a musician myself and have done it professionally and gotten paid for it in the real world, the creative endeavors that I want to do myself aren't necessarily monetized yet.
Hmm.
And you're growing up in an era where, I mean, I grew up in an era where it was a hell of a lot easier for an artist. It wasn't any easier getting paid what you deserve to get paid, but it was easier to get paid for your services as a professional musician than it is now. I mean, you look at all these artists who are legacy artists. I mean, their revenue stream has transformed from trying to sell their music to touring off a back catalog, because what the only thing that's keeping record labels afloat right now, if you're a legacy artist, is their back catalog. And anybody starting out in this business, like say you've been at it for over 10 years or more, it is a hell of a lot harder when you have the average number of Spotify artists that show up weekly is about 150,000 plus new songs and different artists. It is so it's a hell of a lot harder to get noticed in that universe. So what sets you apart, some people, and it's a fine line between exploiting your personal self. Well, you know where I'm going with that, because what is going to set Vicky Leigh apart from 999,000 other artists? What niche do you have that can? I mean, it is a journey of self discovery, but at the same time, I see all these artists that grew up on the internet. I look at Justin Bieber. Okay, he started off
Okay.
as a YouTube. Well, he started off as a YouTube artist, and then Scooter Braun, his famous agent, discovered him. But unfortunately, and I give him a lot of credit for having a lot of talent. But unfortunately, his adolescence was visible on the main stage and social media and the internet. He basically, any mistakes that, and he's made plenty of them, but any mistakes that were made on the world stage for all to view. And but he was in that bridge the gap of recorded artists being able to monetize off of touring and selling their music to now where you got to have a different revenue stream. So a lot of people, a lot of musicians turn to the world that I work in right now, which is spear alcohol.
No.
You look
Oh,
at
okay.
Post Malone's got a rosé. John Bon Jovi's son has a rosé. Chris Stapleton has just partnered with Buffalo Trace Distilleries, which is quite popular in the States here for Buffalo Trace bourbon brand, and has a whiskey under their moniker, Traveler Whiskey. So the revenue stream is coming from somewhere else than the music. So for artists like yourself, you're having to find how can I monetize this. So it ain't as easy as it used to be, and you're not unemployed. You're a starving artist.
Thank you. You make me feel validated.
You are validated, sweetheart, because I understand how hard it is, how fucking hard it is to be a new musician relatively in this streamiverse. That
Mm.
you how how do I get noticed for my artistry, but of the unique things that all the unique things that I am, and you're doing that, and you're doing it damn well, and and it. Let's face it, even artists who are well known are finding that they have to come on to some of these smaller platform podcasts, and essentially it's still as much of a grassroots campaign for an established artist as it is for a budding artist. So I find that the playing field has kind of been leveled in kind of a way. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but I find it's.
I've never really considered that, but I feel like one of the great things about you is that we'll have conversations that are like 2, 3 hours long, and I will always walk away with something that I've never thought of or considered before, and you've given me this thing that I can take away and think about. I also want to say that after you compared me to the Pet Shop Boys, I may or may not have ended up listening to them and having a little jam whilst I was like making dinner or making a coffee or something. So thanks for that.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you for the compliment. And I'll only say that I can only take credit for this because many who have come before me and have guided me, I have many friends, loved ones, extended family, and universe, and you're included in that, of course. And that
Thank you.
is age. Your thank you. I should be thanking you. But I'm humbled. And that is it. All boils down to two things: age and experience. And just because I've been around longer, I've had a number of opportunities to fuck up more, make the mistakes, stumbled and fumbled myself, and potentially have learned from that. If I could pass on anything, it's just look, here's how I fucked up, and here's how the happy accidents that I've gone through have transformed me or made me think about this, that, the other thing. So believe me, um, we're all part of that greater universe, and we're more alike than we are different. And even those that we don't agree with politically at all, we all eat, breathe, sleep, shit, and piss the same. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not the same,
Ah,
but in a general overall, there's a lot more that we're alike than we are different. And you
yeah.
and I are in two different universes, maybe how we identify ourselves, but at the same time, we all want to be accepted. We all want to be loved. We all want to be validated. And it all boils down to that acceptance that we seek validation. I mean, I always say Facebook started off as an insidious, you know, am I hot
Yeah.
or not variation of the old website, am I hot or not? And now it's, Zuckerberg has turned into this, metaverse and, and really he started out as a snotty college kid who was doing a variation on am I hot or not? And
Can
that,
I just say that The Social Network is a great film. I
oh,
love it. I
brilliant.
need. And when I was younger, I used to get compared to Jesse Eisenberg because I have purple curly hair now. But when it was blonde, I'd walk past people in school and they'd be like, "Oh my God, it's Jesse Eisenberg," or "Oh my God, it's Will Ferrell."
I could see both. um, and honestly, I'll throw another one in there.
Michael Cera.
No, no,
Okay.
one that you'll have to go back and look at him. When Eric Clapton had curly hair in the rock band Cream,
Okay.
you'll have to
I
look
think
that one up
my
because the
dad
glasses that you're
liked.
wearing too, and this just made me think of the '60s in a way.
Um, every now and again, I also get compared. This is very rare and might be a very individualistic thing, but
Niche.
I have been told I look like Matt Healy from the 1975, or compared to a couple of times, which is
Oh,
like a massive because
oh,
I love the 1975.
cool. Hey, at the end of the day, you know, comparisons like that. I mean, when I was, well, I'm thinner now. I used to get Jim Carrey a lot.
I
Um,
love Jim Carrey.
Let me tell you something. I take the glasses off and all this shit. Let me tell you something. Alrighty then, and all that shit. So, I mean, and I got typecast in character roles in operas and stuff like that as being the comic relief, the imp, and all that. And hey, when it paid, you didn't argue. I didn't necessarily always wanted to be the non-serious, role, but you do get, like many of us, we get typecast in things and labels are thrown upon us. So we want to veer from that, and things like podcasts are a way of doing that, shifting the narrative, if you will.
I mean, I'd say you're incredibly hilarious, but also insightful and
Appreciate oh.
serious.
It all boils down to the opportunities that I've had and who I am to begin with, and then the opportunities that I've had to put them in different places where you would least expect them. So I'm humbled by that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I also didn't know you when this was going on, so who you are now is probably like 50 times different to who you were back then. So,
And I'll say yes and no. I'll say maybe the core of who I am is still there, very
uh-huh.
much so. And um, I don't think this side of me, being serious and trying to be, as you say, insightful. I suppose there's a bit of that I have more insightful. Insightfulness comes from living your life, putting yourself out there, and hopefully learning from these different experiences and just trying to connect the dots. That's all I'm simply at the end of the day, because I traveled around a lot, because when my father was still living, we moved around a lot as kids, and my sense of adaptability comes from that. As I'm sure you've had to have modicums of adaptability in your own life, in your own unique journey. That's we're at the end of the day, we're human beings, and some of us get scared to go out there and discover because these are strange times that we're living in, to say the least. And we get, including myself, I'll envelop myself into podcasts and listening to other people's voices to drown out my own voices of anxiety, because we are living in an age of anxiety for sure,
Mm.
most certainly. And we often listen to musical artists and outside things, TV shows and stuff, to distract ourselves from the voices in our head, right?
Mm.
Can I get
I
a
whenever
witness?
whenever I have conversations with medical professionals or mental health professionals, they're like, "So, how do you like? What do you do to cope?" I guess, and I always say that I distract myself very often by watching TV shows or listening to music. But sometimes the TV shows or the music that I'm indulging myself in kind of align with what's going on. And it's really weird, and I feel like it's a very unique, well, not unique, but a unique, special way to process everything through like a song or an episode of a TV show.
Well, I'm going to say this uh, before we wrap things up. Watch this space, because you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I'm just putting this out there in the universe, and it will be manifested. Watch this. Watch. Which way am I pointing here? watch this. Watch this one right here, because the future. I've seen the future, and to paraphrase a Prince song, I've seen the future, and it will be. I've seen the future, and it works. Watch this
I hope
space.
so.
I know so. We're going to keep cheerleading from the sidelines of the awesome fabulousnesses that is Vicky Leigh. So watch this space now, Vicky. Besides on Bandcamp for your music and other endeavors,
Before
where
we
can
wrap
we find?
up,
Where can people find you?
before I do that, can I just say two very quick things?
Please, no, you don't have to make them quick. You don't have to make them quick.
Okay. Obviously, please, like, I'd be very appreciative if you could hop on the Vicky Leigh bandwagon, listen to the music, read the stuff that I write, engage with me, be a fan. I'll welcome you in with open gay arms. But also, Billie Eilish released a new album literally at midnight today. I've listened to it. It is incredible. I am not a Billie Eilish fan, but I love every single song, and I probably won't shut up about it if you give me the chance. So, listeners, as a non Billie Eilish fan, go listen to her album. And
What's it called?
also Hit Me Hard and Soft, I do believe.
Well, I propose that we do this. Maybe I'll go
Yeah.
listen to the album and we can have a reaction to it together.
I will be more than happy to listen to it again and take notes on every
Now you
second.
yourself have a podcast. Yes, you haven't I don't see that you've aired put anything on in a while.
So Trans Talks is was done through my old uni when I was at uni, and there were plans to pick it up, and there was supposed to be a second series, but nobody has spoken to anybody. But I also have a project idea that's
Okay.
kind of starting to grow. It's a seedling. It's called the Daisy Chain.
Hmm,
Guess where that name came from? But as well as doing
got it.
like the main Daisy Chain thing, as well as doing the main Daisy Chain things, which is a whole nother video, I want to do Daisy Chain Radio slash Daisy Chain Podcast, which is basically a rip-off of the MPG audio shows. And I have I'm waiting for a person to get back to me to start that. So there's Trans
Okay.
Talks that's somewhere in the ether,
Yeah.
and then there's Daisy Chain Podcast that is neat waiting to start.
Well, I'm going to put up links for all that older archives stuff, because it's worth listening to, because I had listened to one of your episodes a while back now, probably two. And I had told you, you know, I mean, I felt like I've known you longer, but I feel like it was only a year ago that we talked, and you said, "No, no, no, Kurt, we've known each other in the universe for 2 years now." I'm like, Jesus, where does time go? See, for my world, time feels like it moves faster the older you get, and believe me, when people used to tell me that, I never believed them. But let me tell you, it feels like a fart in the wind sometimes. Oh, there goes another decade. Oh, there goes another month. It just feels like time moves faster.
You know, the elusive song that I keep talking about that I've been working on. I
Yeah.
don't know if I specified it in the message to you and Chris on our group chat, but the first ever version of it that I wrote was 10 years ago. And it's taken me 10 years to get to a point of actually recording the music for it.
Hey, some people are able to bang out a song like Bohemian Rhapsody in a couple months, or Beach Boys' Good Vibrations. Some I mean, Beethoven took his ninth final symphony, took him forever to write that. And he had many other symphonies that he completed before that. It just, that one was a labor of love. Wagner, anti Semite that he was, his final opera, Parsifal, and I got to perform in it with Placido Domingo as the title role, in the title role, world famous opera singer. He It took Wagner his whole career to finish that magnum opus. But in the end, it's an incredible piece of work, despite my misgivings about Richard Wagner, whose birthday I do share is actually May 22nd. Next week, his birthday is coming up. But politically, just morally, I just do not like Richard Wagner at all. But as a creative force, he's written some incredible music. So anyway, but notwithstanding, you, my dear, are a wonderful creative force, and morally, mwah, 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 can't get enough of you. Really can't, my dear. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. In
Thanks
the
for having
links
me.
in description below of this fabulous episode, I will have links where we can find Vicky. Where can people keep in touch with you should they want to know more?
Instagram, I always say, is my main hub. Vicky X Leigh on Instagram, Vicky Leigh Music on Bandcamp. I think Vicky Leigh on SoundCloud. I have a couple of non songs that I want to put out, but
Okay.
you can't buy on Bandcamp. There's me on Medium where I review stuff. I'm on TikTok. I'm currently reviewing and discussing every episode of the new Doctor Who series that you should watch, all of you, please.
The first
And
episode's fabulous.
I would love to come back and talk about Doctor Who separately because my two
Sure,
things are like Prince and Doctor Who.
sure.
But I'm trying to think where else I am. Just type in Vicky Leigh on Google.
We will do that. So with that, folks, I'd like to say thanks again to Vicky for coming on. This has been in the works for a while. I'm glad we finally made it happen. And this is on a Friday, or as I like to call it, a Purple Friday, because I'm a Baltimore lad and I still follow the Baltimore American football team. I have to qualify that because the real football is soccer, what we call it soccer here in the States. And I've become a Wednesday football club fan in honor of my dear friend Martin Ware. So go Wednesday. They're still standing up, still there, still standing. So on that note, once again, Vicky, thank you for coming on the Purple Curd
It's
podcast.
back.
And now we're gonna use your music as an outro. Vicky, any last words you'd like to say to the beautiful folk?
Support me, support trans people, queer people. Watch Doctor Who.
All right. On that note, next time it'll be with Mr. Jay Silva and myself, and we have some special guests. I'm bursting at the seams, and I'm going to talk off the air with Vicky about who those special guests are. I cannot wait to tell you. So, on that note, peace and hair grease, folks. Support LGBTQIA in all its iterations, as I like to call the Crayola Box Cartel. On the next episode, stay tuned. And if you like what you heard today, please like and subscribe. Peace.